This is gonna be a more casual live, I guess, because I'm not feeling very well today and I just didn't even want to get out of bed. So we're just gonna do it here. I'm just gonna wait maybe like 5 minutes until people join. This book, it's Wednesday, by the way, and it's the last, is it Wednesday? I hope it's Wednesday, because the last Wednesday of the month. If you follow me, you know we're doing overviews of the books, of the different books of the Bible, every last Wednesday of the month. And this Wednesday, it's Judges. Yeah, but the point is not for me to just spoil it out and tell you what the book is about, like in detail. You know, the point is actually to encourage people to read the Word of God, because God is actually speaking through His Word. And we neglect it a lot of the times. We just run over it like we know it already. So, the Book of Judges is like, it's bloody. It's very, very bloody. It is dark. It's disturbing. And it's also just like, wait, I wrote the word for it. How is it? Violent. Violent is the word. Did you guys read Judges? Hi, Nola. Did you guys read Judges ever at all? You. So the next book is actually the one that I'm very well familiar with. The one that we're doing next month is the Book of Ruth. Why? Because Naomi is in there, so obviously that's why I've been born with it. My parents preached it to me all day long. And Judges is very interesting. I mean, all of the books are interested in the Bible. Sorry if I sound a little bit sick, I kind of am. But I didn't want to postpone this. I could have postponed this for tomorrow, but I just wanted to go live, chat to you a little bit. And since I finished reading it, I was like, I might just as well do a live on it, because next week is November, and it's gonna be another chapter of life. Literally speaking, it's gonna be another season of life almost. So the Book of Judges is belonging to the past season of my life, so I need to do it now, otherwise it can't wait. So in the Book of Judges, Israel gets an epic F for failure on their test to obey and serve God. And basically, in the Book of Judges, it's also an illustration of how people can perish without a leader, without a mentor, without a king. Because in between, so the last centralized leadership was in Joshua. It was Joshua. And between Joshua and the first king, Saul, there's 350 years. So in the Book of Judges is spread in like 350 years. And those 350 years are like the people of Israel going back and forth, repeating the same cycle of sin. There's a cycle of sin, and then it's actually 11 steps of like, I'm gonna get into that after. But it's very interesting. You can track where you're at in your like walk with God, kind of. So yeah, 300. So Joshua's speech, Joshua was the last like central leader who was leading Israel, and like a centralized leadership kind of thing, whereas in Judges it was more of a tribe kind of leadership. So every tribe had its own like leadership and like listening them to God, in their own way, wanting to. So Joshua's speech the last chapter was in his last speech. He said clearly, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." But while those words were in the air, the roller coaster started. It like right after the death of Joshua, they started to fail to serve the Lord. It was just the tribes of Israel settling into their like allotments that they were attributed and making decisions to go to war. And let me just tell you, first of all, that judges, it's not just a person who's saying, oh, this is right and wrong, and is sentencing people for prison and death and whatnot. That's not what a judge was doing at the time. So a judge was actually in the Old Testament, it was a regional political military, like a tribal chieftain, you know. And the Book of Judges counts 13 judges. Some people say 14, but I say 13, and 12 men and 1 woman. I like that part. There was 1 woman, Deborah. But if we get to that, we're not gonna go that in depth. But if we get to speak about Deborah, she was not just the woman. She was the wife of. She was like called as the wife of. So there was still this kind of, although she was leading the tribe, she still had kind of submission, or like the man, her husband was the leader in the family. Like it was not like that, it was not the feminism kind of thingy in the Old Testament. But anyway, just a side note. Yeah, so it's very bloody, very violent, very disturbing book, and it tells the truth about Israel's moral corruption. And that's what I like about the Bible, that it doesn't hide its own like disgusting truth sometimes about the people of Israel. It doesn't hide it. It's there. But if you're in depression or if you feel like anxious, don't go read the Book of Judges. Just read any other book except the Book of Judges, because it's not going to lift you up. But is the truth of the moral corruption that like the book ends on a really, really bad note, and really, really bad like behaviors that they were doing, and it's just a horror book almost. Like, I'm sorry I have to say this. I need to do the Book of Judges because I said I was gonna do the Bible 1 book a month, so I want to stick to that. Although maybe I think in 2 months we're gonna go to the New Testament to switch a little bit, to not just do the Old Testament. But anyway, we need to go through it. It's just the truth. It doesn't hide its own truth. The history of God's people. So the theme of the book is like from conquest to compromise. And how can I say this? I'm gonna tell you here now the cycles. That there's a historian who said that the average age of the world's greatest civilization was 200 years, and within those 200 years, the civilization traveled through the same sequence of of kind of steps, I would guess, in their history. So you can, this is what is happening in the Book of Judges, and you can also like look at what is happening in America and like see that, see the world from that perspective, if you know what I mean. So it's basically every civilization is going from, and that's in your faith walk too, it's going from bondage to spiritual faith, from spiritual faith to great courage. You're courageous. From great courage to liberty, from liberty to abundance, from abundance to leisure, from leisure to selfishness, from selfishness to complacency, from complacency to apathy, from apathy to dependence, and from dependence to weakness, and from weakness back to bondage again. You need that bondage in order to reach faith, in order to reach the courage, the liberty, the abundance. But then you fall back again into that comfortable zone where you don't need it. You have all you need and then you don't need it, and then you fall back into dependence, and then weakness and bondage again. So careful which sequence you're at in your faith walk, in your spiritual life. And always, always bring it back at God. Bring it, like, ask Him always to preserve you almost from this spiritual laziness or comfort, spiritual comfort zone. You know, so because, yeah, it's sad to say this, but we see the glory of God. We see the power and the love of God when we're at the dark place a lot of times. And sometimes God needs to put us there so we can actually see what we've been saved from. You know, you need to be put in that like situation of like going crazy or having anxiety and stressing out and being overwhelmed. You need to be put in that situation so that God can save you and you attribute Him the glory. If you forget to attribute Him the glory, if you surrender to Him, He will do that. He will hide you back again. You did something wrong. If you attribute your own glory to yourself, you will have to take measures, but in a kind way, and He will purify you. Anyway, that's the cycle, and that's the cycle in Judges. I'm not gonna go over all of it. I'm only doing half an hour today because I don't feel very good. But from conquest to compromise. And the thing is, so their first battle was successful because they asked God what to do, and He answered. But the next battle was kind of a roller coaster trap because they didn't ask God what to do. They assumed, and they even got to a point in the book where they didn't know God's character anymore. They didn't know who God was. And they were so they lived so much among the Canaanites, lived among them, that they took on their worshiping style, and they at one point they started to worship God as the Canaanites were worshiping the other gods, because they forgot what God's worship actually consisted in, and they thought the Israel God was the same as was on the same level as the Canaanite God, and they should worship worship him in the same way, kind of way, you know. Yeah. So if you don't want to read all Judges, you just read chapter 2, because chapter 2, it gives a preview of kind of the book and their failure without a leader. The thing is, the whole point, okay, maybe you didn't, maybe you weren't here when we talked about Joshua. Woo! But the main point of, so Israel got into the promised land. Israel got into the promised land, and in the promised land there were a lot of tribes. So for example, the Canaanites was different kind of tribes. They were called the Canaanites. There were several ones into the name Canaanites, and the reason why God was telling the people of Israel to fight those battles and like win over the tribes and like eradicate them all was because he didn't want his people to get corrupted by the practices, by the moral corruption that was in the practices of the Canaanites. So the whole point of driving the Canaanites from the land was to avoid that moral corruption. And when I mean moral corruption, I don't mean dressing inappropriately, listening to non-Christian music, or using curse words and stuff like that, and all that non-Christian stuff. I'm talking about they were sacrificing their babies to worship other gods. So that kind of moral corruption. They were doing basically a disgrace to God's creation, disgrace to humanity, and so we're sacrificing living beings was, hope this word is not censored, it happens. Sacrificing those human beings was a normal practice for the Canaanites. Yeah, occult rituals. It was normal. It was normal in their culture. And even worse things that I'm not going to mention, like their god Baal or Baal was the storm god. He was controlling production of the crop, the sun, the storm, the water, and all that, fertility. And regarding fertility, they were doing weird stuff too. So like it was more than appearances. It was like disrespecting God's creation almost, you know. So think of that when you think of like moral corruption. And because I made a quick video that I haven't posted yet about how we should not be so quick to watch your words when you're speaking about other Christians, because a lot of Christians are like fighting each other. And watch your words when you're speaking about, oh, this man has tattoos, or this woman has, like, this man has long hair, or like they're doing this job wherever. Like, watch what you're saying, because you never know who God is using. You never know who God is going to use. And God using somebody doesn't mean he agrees with everything they're doing. It just means God can use literally anyone. Yeah, I'll post that maybe tomorrow. Anyway, so think of that when you think of moral corruption, and not like all those like superficial visual things that we fight against each other in Christianity. And yeah, so but Israel, instead of listening to God's moral code, they thought they were superior to God's moral code. Like they almost thought that, oh, I can change them. Oh, oh, they're not that, they're just people, we should love them. The dangerous thing here, what I'm trying to be like, use my words very wisely, which I never do, by the way. The dangerous thing here is that when you think too much of, I mean, God knew how their hearts were. God knew how, if they are firm, solid in his foundation, to not let anybody corrupt their methods, their style, their religion. They could have probably be a light within that darkness, but they weren't at that level. They were just people who needed a leader. They needed a leader to guide them, otherwise they fall. Nowadays, our leader is Jesus and mentors. So nowadays, it's like you have the leader, whether it's a pastor, whether it's parents, whether it's somebody with wisdom, knowledge to like guide you in Jesus and the New Testament. But back then, they needed to have either a king, either a leader, centralized leadership, otherwise they would fall. And that's why instead of like lifting the Canaanites and like converting them, they got down to their level. Basically, they got down to the Canaanites' level of moral corruption. And there's a lot of judges, yeah, amongst which Gideon, Deborah, and 11 others. I'm not gonna tell all of them. But one of the things that struck to me, to say what, like the main points that I wanted to actually share, that struck to me was several times in the book of Judges, God was saying, go with the strength you have. And save them and direct them. Go with the strength you have. And Joshua, the key sentence was, be strong and courageous. Here it was, go in the strength you have. And God was picking on, the judges were not perfect. The judges were not morally superior all the time. Gideon begins as a coward, but he learns to trust God. And because of his trust of God, he defeats the Midianites with 300 men only. When you trust God, he will almost like eliminate your resources, make you keep a little of it, and with that little that you have, with the little strength that you have left, you will win great battles. Great battles. When you trust that even that little thing that you have is enough for God to use you. Because a lot of us are like dreaming of big stuff and how God is gonna pour so much into us, and we need to like have so much knowledge, prepare all those things, have everything set up before we can preach to people, before we can lead people to Christ, before we can like be there for people, emotional support. We need to do all this training. But they had so many men. I don't know how, they were at 1,000-ish. I don't know. From 1,500 or something, they got down to 300. They had the resources, but God was like, no, you won't need all of it. Just need those 300 men, and with them, I will prove to you that it's not because of your resources, and it's not because how well you've done and how much money you saved and how many jobs you worked and how much work experience you have that it will get that job, or it's not because you have learned to cook, have learned humility, have learned everything that I will bring you a husband, that I will bring you to a husband. You're brought to him. It's not because of all of that, but it's because of your trust in me and your obedience in me, and because you went and did my will with the little strength that you had. Because ultimately, what we shouldn't do is give ourselves credit. I said it somehow yesterday in a video. If people understood that all those things that God can give us, the abundance and the cycle, can actually make us trust in those things, you know? And I know that we are given we live in a society where it's very much, there's this unbalance sometimes between like what you can do, locus of control, taking responsibility for your things. God gave you freedom of choice. God gave you responsibility. You take responsibility. You build that startup. You register. You do all that. You save money. You use your wisdom, to do all those things. And the other extreme, when you do nothing. And sometimes there's imbalance in that, because there are some things we should do because God gave us wisdom, so we shouldn't do it. We should do it alone, not wait for God to do it. But other things that depend on God, that we should really learn to let go, like mentally let go of it. And sometimes we don't teach people which one is what, like which one is the thing you should like persevere into, learn a new skill, whatever that you're going to use for God, and which is the thing that you should let go of. And we get confused into like, oh, I need to do all of that. Maybe it's yes, maybe it's no, depending on the thing. I don't know if you didn't understand what I'm saying, but anyway, that was the thing that I wanted to share, is like, will you go with the strength that you have? And God, when he calls Gideon a man of honor, not because he was, but because that's what the Lord wanted him to be, wanted him to do. Same as Paul in the New Testament. He was called Peter, sorry. He was called, it means a rock, because God was going to lay his church, his foundation on him, the foundations of his church, new church on him. And because Jesus knew what he would become. Blind faith. Blind faith, baby steps. Yeah, those were the main things. It's half an hour, so we're gonna almost get done with it. Get a mentor if you don't have one. I managed to get some mentors. I have 3 people I can go to now, because God always confirms his word by the mouth of 3 witnesses. So you kind of need people of God in your life to just make it easier. Just makes it easier to receive clarity. Sometimes God is using people are his vessels. You need a second opinion, at least, on your decisions that you're doing. But it needs to be somebody you trust. It needs to be somebody who knows you and somebody who doesn't know you. Somebody who knows your past, where you're coming from, to understand your perspective, your will, your desire to serve the Lord, how you want to serve the Lord, and somebody who doesn't know you, doesn't know you that much, so they can have like an outside view on things, and just don't wait to serve God with a little. Like, maybe it's just going and making coffee for somebody, like, from time to time. Maybe it's just bringing food to somebody who has COVID. Oops. Maybe it's just bringing groceries to somebody who's sick. Like, maybe it's just like visiting, bringing flowers to somebody, whatever. Maybe it's just cleaning somebody's garden that is not yours. Do go with the strength you have, and don't think of reward, guys. Don't think of reward. Don't, because if you think of the reward, you're gonna do it for the reward. So don't even think about it. Don't even think about getting a reward or that God is gonna see you and stuff. Just do it because it would make you happy, and because that's the right thing to do. Yeah, that was it for today. I'm gonna wrap it up because I'm really tired and sick. So I'm gonna do Ruth last Wednesday of the month, or maybe it's gonna be last Sunday of the month, because Sunday is easier for me. But if you don't, thank you, sleep. If you don't wait, if you don't what? No, I'm gonna do it the last Wednesday or Sunday of the month. And we're gonna do Ruth, and I'm really comfortable with the Book of Ruth because my name is in it. And because of that, I think that after Ruth, because Kings is a long book, I want to start also the New Testament, because I don't just want to do, I want to do a little bit of the New Testament. So I'm gonna pray about it and see about it. But I really feel like in this season I need to read the New Testament, and we're not just crossing over the promised land anymore. We're actually in it, and it's a battle. And this is where Jesus' teachings are crucial in the promised land. Once you're in the promised land, and it's battle after battle after battle every day. Even today was a battle because I didn't want to get out of bed. Little battle, but still a battle. And the enemy is really attacking your minds right now. It's attacking your confusion, it's attacking your clarity, it's attacking your friendships. Literally, it's attacking so many things in October, and you need to stay rooted in his word every day. Make it a discipline, because it was easy in June, July, August. It was easy. It was just me and God, best friends all the time. No need to like say anything, like no need to disciplinate myself. It was so natural flow. But like now, guys, the enemy is attacking, and it's becoming difficult almost to want to hear from God, because it's almost like you don't know if you're even hearing from God. So the enemy is really attacking. So that's why you need to get dressed with the armor and discipline a little bit. Until Christmas, we have to be disciplined. Okay, we're gonna make an effort. Okay, enough talking. Thank you guys for watching, tuning in, for everything, and thank you again, Slee, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.